r/askreddit. What is the most bullshit thing you've ever heard someone say? Someone I know said that if a bear is chasing you, don't run down a hill, because the bear would roll down the hill like a boulder and crush you. He really believed it. I worked with a guy that would always say stupid comments and people would always call him out for saying dumb things. One day he got mad about it and went on a rant about how he was only dumb because he had to drop out of school to take care of his blind mom when he was 14 and no one else was around to take care of the family. Everyone got quiet and it was awkward until someone said, "Your mom drove you to work today." Asshole attending my college. There was a meth lab next door to my house and it smelled terrible. So I hit it with my sound cannon and destroyed the house. Oh. Also I put a virus on my friend's computer, so the disk in the computer spun so fast that it shattered and broke the computer. Also I can direct lightning through my hands. This man is not special edition. I don't understand anything anymore. My stepdad's niece married this fat hick, and well, basically everything that ever comes out of his mouth. First, he claims he was a Navy SEAL, and even if you look at the guy and can somehow think, well, maybe he just got really out of shape, 3 minutes talking to him, and you know he's full of shit. But he lives a gimmick, and his wife believes it. We went to some motorcycle races one night, and I heard him quietly tell his wife, "I know I'm not the only SEAL here. I've seen a few guys, and I can tell by what they're wearing that they're SEALs." He would also tell us how, in the Navy, they used to play baseball with balls of C4 and watch them explode, and one time they knocked one into the sunroof of a fellow seaman's brand new Camaro and blew it up. I didn't bother to point out that C4 needs a detonator, because I'm sure he would just explain that this was special C4 that didn't need a detonator. There was another time he told the story of when he promised his grandmother that he would drive from Michigan to California in 16 hours and he did. If you look at a map and don't take any roads into consideration, just connect the two closest points between Michigan and California, you're at about 2,000 miles. Add in roads and the fact that he was going from the middle of Michigan to the middle of California, and you're close to 3,000 miles in 16 hours. In middle school, this kid who was notorious for being full of shit told me that his uncle raised clay pigeons. Like those orange targets that you throw in the air and shoot with a shotgun. Same kid had this army jacket that he wore from time to time that was his uncle's. Claimed that the holes in it were from a BB gun that some German was using in WWII. At the time I didn't realize the many flaws in this. I had a friend in high school that would always tell semi-plausible stories that we suspected were bullshit, but we could never catch him on it. One day during lunch, we were talking about weed, and he casually says, when my dad was a cop in the 70s, he would confiscate weed from guys and then go back and smoke it because it was legal back then. We all kind of looked around the table and some brave soul said, "Dude, if weed was legal, then why were the cops confiscating it?" I was a relatively late bloomer when I first got to college in terms of sex, so I often turned to some of my older friends for knowledge. By far the worst counsel I received in that time was, if she doesn't look like the type of person that would have an STD, then she doesn't have an STD. Don't listen to that advice. Wear a condom. I knew a dude in high school who was probably a pathological liar. He would literally lie about everything. It didn't matter how insignificant, it would be a lie. Got a new car yesterday. Drives up in the same old car. Got a job making $30 an hour. No, you're 16. Got a 100 on every test last week. Kid was dumb as bricks. We kinda got sick of calling him out all the time, so we just let him continue telling his lies. Then one day he starts saying that he met this girl on Habbo Hotel, which was like a stupid online chat room game. The guy starts saying that she's from Finland or some shit, and that she's super hot. He continues to tell us that she's moving in with him and keeps showing us pictures of this hot girl. But then, shortly after HS, he moves in with the girl from Habbo Hotel. Goddamn, the one most bullshit thing he said was actually true. She announced to my friend a couple weeks after starting to date my friend that she was pregnant. It became apparent that there was no way in hell that the baby was his, as she was majorly showing and feeling movement about 8 weeks in, because she was actually 16 to 18 weeks pregnant. but they ended up getting married despite our warnings to our friend. We even took a go bag to his wedding and told him he could take our car and get out if he wanted. No dice. So she had to come up with something that would explain why she'd be having the baby so early. She told his mother, in front of us, that they were going to induce her 6 weeks early because she had scoliosis. This induction was to take place in the middle of March, when she'd be 34 weeks. My spouse actually turned away and laughed out loud. She then had her baby on February 2nd, so by her math, just 28 weeks, which of course is extremely premature and requires a lengthy stay in the NICU. Nope. Baby was a healthy 9-pounder and they went home the next day. Sigh. They had started dating in late July. She also said her hands were registered as deadly weapons. I was in the Navy at the time, stationed in Italy, and was hanging out with 2 of my friends at a pub. One friend, call him Irish, simply because he was, another friend named Hottie, because she was, and I were all drinking. Hottie was hot enough that even with Irish around, who was a massive bastard, she still got hit on pretty regularly. She was cool about it, but would occasionally lean on us if the guy was getting too obnoxious. This guy was obnoxious, but not in a harmful way, just full of himself, and he just immediately rang the bullshit phone. Well, Irish has barely spoken at this point as he's watching football and only half listening to the conversation. Obnoxious guy states to Hottie that he was actually from Europe. He wasn't. He was from America, plainly, to somehow impress Hottie, which was weird, because we were actually in Europe at the time. Hottie asks, oh yeah, where are you from? Obnoxious guy says Dublin, but pronounces it Dublin. Irish slams his hand on the counter, spins around, face red and practically screams in his very thick, very authentic Irish accent, Dublin. Dublin. Is it where the fucking Lou operations come from? Irish looks like he's going to throttle the kid, calls him just about every name in the book before Obnoxious thinks better of it and slinks away. I was 17 at the time working at ASDAP UK Walmart and had the joyful experience of having a serial bullshitter as my supervisor known as Michael. We would work in groups on occasion, doing the usual, stacking shelves, warehouse duties etc. But we would often have Michael with us to boost morale and to keep a healthy team-based environment. It was when the store was quiet we would start hearing ridiculous stories, too many to count. The one I always remember and still tell to people I work with now is how Michael, at the age of 16, was a bare knuckle fighter known as One Punch Mike who juggled 12-hour night shifts at ASDAP, full-time college education and gypsy brawling, bare knuckled of course. Honestly, you could not make this stuff up. It's incredible how far some people go to make their stories believable. Michael, if you ever come across this, we all knew you were chatting, so don't take this post personally, you weapon. It's this one guy I used to work with. It wasn't really a bullshit thing he said one time, but a bullshit thing he said a lot, and it didn't appear he comprehended what it meant. Example, we were discussing different ways of going about completing work for a project, and his idea was flat out wrong, performing the easy stuff to boost reporting numbers instead of getting into the important stuff. Anyway, his thing is to say, I hear what you're saying, or I know, or I understand, while someone else is speaking, and then just regurgitate his bad idea, as if confirming what you're saying will allow his crappy idea to make sense. I heard him do this not far from my desk to someone else, and the other person just said, I don't think you are hearing what I'm saying, because if you did, you would understand that what you're saying is incorrect. It was so satisfying. I wouldn't have stolen it if you hadn't made it so easy. Said by an immediate family member about something I left on my kitchen table. Edit, adding some details that people keep asking for. It was my 13-year-old son who stole my debit card from my wallet, which was inside my purse on the table. At that point, I had been trying to get help for him for about 5 years. He was on a constant downward spiral with behaviors and thought processes. I couldn't get any help from any of the professionals I sought help from, as they didn't take the situation seriously, or outright didn't believe me. He is now getting help, after things branched outward instead of being solely within my home. I still don't have answers to exactly what the problem or problems is/are, but progress is being made. My mom downgraded from an iPhone to a Samsung S390G with a physical keypad. When I asked why, she said I can't text and drive with a touchscreen.